The Senate is now in session. Welcome. Good afternoon. My name is Aidan Hayes, and today I am presiding over this session of the GIC US Senate. I'm assuming 4 different responsibilities and roles here. I'm the presiding officer over this legislative body. I am the Sergeant at Arms, so if there's any misbehavior, it's my duty to take care of that. I'm the parliamentarian, and most important, I am the chief timekeeper. But I must say that I have 2 excellent support staff here in the bailiffs at the front of the dais here. They will be in charge of timing each presentation and each rebuttal at the end. My job is to ensure an orderly debate and an orderly vote, and more on that in just a moment. Today, all of you are honorary senators, acting with the grave responsibility to listen carefully to the speeches of your 4 Senate colleagues, to reflect on the ideas that they put forth, and then to vote for the most ambitious, the most impressive, the most necessary initiative that will be undertaken under the auspices of this body. The ideas that you will hear are breakthroughs. They are blockbusters. They are the bluest of blue sky thinking. You'll hear 4 proposals from 4 senators. Each senator will speak for 7 minutes. After all have spoken, we'll take questions from the floor and from the galleries. Please make your questions brief and to the point, and be sure to state to which of the senators it is addressed. Finally, each of our 4 senators will have 1 minute to sum up his or her position and arguments, and we will then vote. Now, I have been instructed that this vote is to be measured strictly by applause, and that cheers, boos, whistles, hisses, and raspberries will not be counted in the voting. Now that we all understand the rules of the debate, I would like to call first upon the senator from the great state of New Hampshire, Senator Nora Larkin. Senator Larkin is the chair of the Senate Committee on Radical Thought and Subversive Action, and she's also served with distinction on the Senate Subcommittee on Strong Drink. Senator Larkin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bailiff Moore, Bailiff Berquist, fellow senators. I'd like to start with a few words about the late Senator Ted Kennedy, for whom this institute is named. When I was 16, Kennedy and then President George W. Bush visited my hometown to promote their new bipartisan, but rather controversial, education bill, No Child Left Behind. I'm not very old, but I do remember a time in which there were bipartisan bills. I attended their talk with my high school history class and was selected to sit behind them up on stage, representing one of the children at risk of being left behind if you did not support the bill. At the end of the speech, Kennedy shook the hands of all the kids on stage, including mine. It was a brief encounter, but memorable nonetheless, and a good lesson that education is a shared national interest. In his 46 years in the Senate, Ted Kennedy led the charge on a number of initiatives aimed at improving the lives of the underserved and underprivileged. His pursuit of these ideals was evident in his first ever speech in front of the Senate in 1964, when he spoke in support of the Civil Rights Act. His fight for equity continued throughout his political career. He supported the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Voting Rights Act, and a number of bills that increased funding for higher education. Harvard University President Drew Faust said of Kennedy's efforts, "No U.S. senator has committed more of his time and his wisdom to the advancement of American higher education. Thanks to him, students across the spectrum have the opportunity to pursue their ambitions." So it is in the spirit of Senator Kennedy that I'd like to use my platform here today to discuss the ways in which our field engages with these same issues of equity in the 21st century, namely the opportunity for students to obtain internships. As we have heard at this conference, there is no denying that internships, co-ops, and other such immersive work experiences offer students the skills and social capital that can lead to future social and economic mobility. Universities and internship organizations structure courses and processes to ensure that students undertake meaningful and productive work. But are these opportunities truly attainable to all of our students? Do internships for US students, both at home and abroad, create equity among our students, thereby closing the growing gap of economic inequality in the US, or do they widen this gap? According to a survey by the National Association of Colleges and Employers, about 65% of 2015 graduates participated in an internship or co-op, the highest percentage ever. But what of the remaining 35% of graduates who did not experience an internship? Unfortunately, a large majority of them are from minority groups. According to the same survey, African American and Latino students are about 10% less likely to participate in an internship. Similarly, young people of color are nearly twice as likely to be unemployed as their white peers. So, if unequal access to internships has the potential to exacerbate inequity in our education system, how can we work toward creating greater access to internships for all students at our institutions and organizations? What would Senator Kennedy do? In his speech on the floor of the Senate in 1964 in support of the Civil Rights Act, Kennedy said that, quote, "Federal programs, especially in the fields of health and education and training for jobs, have an enormous influence on the social fabric of our communities. They can set a pattern in keeping with the moral commitment of the nation, or they can set a pattern opposed to it." If we follow Senator Kennedy's advice, the answer to promoting equal access and opportunity for experiential learning programs is clear. A federal initiative aimed at providing greater access and comprehensive support for students to participate in internships and co-ops at home and abroad. The idea is simple. I am calling for your support of a bill that would expand federal work-study grants, a program which provides on- and off-campus jobs to students. Established in 1964 and supported by Senator Kennedy, it is one of the oldest yet smallest forms of federal financial assistance to college students. It requires students to be paid the federal minimum wage for their work and employers to match the federal government's contributions. 3 changes are crucial to an overhaul of the program. First, the program needs more funding. It currently serves about 700,000 college students each year at a cost of $1 billion. In comparison, there are 9 million Pell Grants awarded each year worth over $30 billion. The funding for these grants needs to be increased to compete with the low-wage jobs already held by many college students to help pay for their schooling. Funding is also critical to support new and innovative ways of administering work-study grants to better serve students on campus. Second, like other forms of financial aid, the grants must be transferable to overseas internship programs abroad. This will create greater equity among students who participate in international opportunities and develop students' intercultural and cultural agility skills, which are sorely lacking in today's job seekers. Finally, there needs to be an expansion of the types of placements to better align with students' career goals. Too many work-study grants are clerical or office work. More than 60% of students said their work-study was not related to their career goals. In its current structure, the federal work-study program represents a missed opportunity. Students are actively seeking a relevant work experience, but are being paid for jobs they find to be irrelevant. As a form of financial aid, these programs are sometimes administered by the Financial Aid Office, which typically has limited resources and expertise to develop a network of placements and match students appropriately. More collaboration between on-campus offices and career services, study abroad, and alumni networks can expand the types of placements available to students in the US and abroad, which connect to their career goals. In his 1964 speech in support of civil rights, Kennedy noted, "We should use our powers not to create conditions of oppression that lead to violence, but conditions of freedom that lead to peace." I believe that with proper federal funding and support, our education system can and should improve, not exacerbate economic inequality. It can become an institution that makes America more equal and more just as Senator Kennedy intended. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Larkin. Just to clarify, that was not the round of applause that will determine the vote. That will come at the end after answering the questions in the 1-minute summation. But thank you again, Senator Larkin. Our second speaker is Senator Brooke Roberts from the great state of Kansas. Senator Roberts is the ranking member on the Senate's International Physical Fitness Committee. Senator Roberts.
One committee. Bummer. It was just before midnight, about 35 years ago, in a sleepy farm town in rural Kansas, that I won the lottery. On that night, I, Brooke Erin Roberts, was born in the United States of America as a white, Anglo-Saxon, Judeo-Christian woman in the modern era. The only thing that could have made that big win even sweeter is if I'd been born a man. Or a Kennedy man. But that's a debate for another time. This is a jackpot that has afforded me incredible opportunities, wealth, access, education, connections, and most importantly, mobility. As a result of this golden ticket that was handed to me at birth, I can go pretty much anywhere in the world I want, whenever I want to go there. My citizenship, race, religion, and maybe even my gender afford me benefits that others just do not have access to. This is privilege. Just this past January, I received a 6-month multi-entry business visa to go to India. The online application took me about 3 minutes. I submitted my $50 fee online, and within 48 hours, I had my visa in hand. Simple, straightforward, easy. Alternatively, one of my Indian counterparts wanting to come to the United States for work for 6 months with multiple entries, she has a much bigger mountain to climb. There's no lottery ticket for her. Her experience includes long application documents, proof of funding, references in the US and India, likely multiple visits to the embassy or consulate, a hefty fee to process the application, plus likely another unofficial fee to help expedite the process under the table, and a 2 to 3 month waiting period before she knows if she was approved. And this scenario is especially true at the student and intern level. When I worked at a university in China, my Chinese students trying to study abroad told me horror stories of working with visa agents, price gouging for application services, inconsistent requirements from consulate to consulate, the process of gathering exorbitant funds into one bank account in order to show they had enough money to fund their education. For those of you keeping score, that's roughly about $200,000 in the bank right now. I don't have that kind of money. You probably don't either. This is what I call building a wall. And it's not just about students wanting to come to the United States. When I worked in South Dakota, a place with a lot of lottery ticket winners like me, I still had students denied on a technicality for a Tier 4 visa to go to the United States to pursue an academic internship. Here's the deal. Most of us in this room are lottery winners, and we have students with a golden ticket as well. But global student mobility and access should not be a crapshoot. It should not be something left to the chance by gods, and a privilege only afforded to the lucky. It's time for a new, innovative approach to student mobility. So imagine this, a world where a student can find an incredible internship opportunity and not have to navigate ridiculous red tape, and not be discriminated against because of their citizenship, race, religion, or socioeconomic status. Imagine a world where the doors to the countries around the globe are as open to our students as they are to the Starbucks Corporation. Imagine a world where privilege doesn't exist. It starts with breaking down some walls between us. Both the literal walls proposed by ridiculous, clownish Republican presidential candidates with bad haircuts and even worse strategies for global engagement. And it starts with breaking down the figurative walls that come in the form of ambiguous, inconsistent, and unrealistic visa policies. On an economic level, we as a country cannot afford to lose the potential economic injection that could come with open global internship policies. Currently, the US receives roughly $30.5 billion each year brought into the US alone from international students. Think what that number could be globally if we had an open internship visa policy, both here in the US and around the world. But more important than the economic impact, we have an ethical responsibility to open the doors with our peers and make student mobility the cornerstone of our national security and our national values. The more rhetoric that is spewed about building walls and banning entry to specific groups of people, the more potential student interns around the world will take pause and rethink doing an international internship at all. Now, my esteemed colleagues here are going to share some quaint ideas with you about global education. Perhaps more funding, that would be nice. A new approach to program delivery, perhaps. Maybe even a whimsical idea about new frontiers and boldly going where no one has gone before. But frankly, none of their ideas are viable until we solve the mobility problem. More funding, new program models, even new frontiers won't change the fact that millions of students around the globe can't access these global internship opportunities. All of their ideas require a winning lottery ticket. We are living in a world We are living in a world with real challenges right here on Earth. Let's keep our head out of the clouds and our feet on the ground. And let's enact a policy that will have a real impact on student interns around the globe. Tonight, I ask you to approve the new Global Internship Visa Program. The GIVE program would empower a centralized body within the United Nations to establish worldwide internship visa policies and requirements. Students around the globe will be able to apply for a global internship visa from the GIVE body directly. These visas will be valid for 3 years, allowing students to pursue practical internship opportunities wherever in the world they are offered throughout their studies. It's time we give students around the world their own winning lottery ticket, a golden ticket that will give them access, opportunities, and most importantly, the privilege of a global internship experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Thank you. Our third speaker today is Senator Emily Merson from the great state of from the great state of Maryland. Senator Merson is the chair of the House and Senate Joint Committee on Relations with the Southern Hemisphere. Senator Merson.
The iPhone was not developed by Bell Telecom. Neither Hilton nor Marriott Hotels launched Airbnb, and Uber was not the brainchild of the taxi union of New York City. Each of these ideas has revolutionized their industry, answered a problem we didn't know we had, and changed the way we live fundamentally. They didn't just fix a business problem, they solved a societal problem, connecting people in new ways and elevating people-to-people relationships, providing something we didn't know we needed, but now we all use every day. Higher education in the United States is in crisis. So much so, we can't actually agree on why it exists. Is it to further knowledge and produce educated citizens? Or is it to prepare people for their first job? A combination of breathtaking costs of overeducation in the classroom and underemployment, a decline in the middle class, and the widening gap between rich and poor. Millennials are now the most educated and most underemployed generation ever. 40% of the unemployed in the US are millennial. Meanwhile, over the last several decades, we have seen a steady absorption of technical and professional trades into costly four-year degree programs. This, combined with the continued obsession with rankings and standardized testings, has created a perfect climate for revolution in higher education. While we have record numbers of graduates, we have a record decline in businesses starting in the United States. According to Gallup, the US has 400,000 new businesses starting every year, while in the same year, 470,000 businesses fail. For entrepreneurship, where do you think we rank? Number 1? Number 2? Number 5? No, we now rank number 12th. For all of our degrees, are we really creating a better world? We fundamentally need to shift the way we see higher education. We need to move beyond competing visions of university and start to focus on the individuals within them. The purpose of education should be to maximize the potential of every student, to allow them to use their strengths, to find a career they love, and to help our future society be better, more just, and safer than the past. But the first step towards change is to realize that we have a problem. Business is now the number 1 degree in the US. 100 years ago, this field would have been taught not in a classroom, but on the job. It's therefore quite shocking that despite this, the majority of business students are only able to get 3 credits for an internship. A recent study by Robert Farley at the University of California suggests that while those who do a business degree start more businesses, they're actually no more successful than people who didn't do a business degree. So why are we doing it? Has the academic absorption of professional trades benefited students or society? Have increased graduation rates elevated our level of education and improved this country? US universities must change and innovate fast, or they will become as irrelevant as the landline phone. But maybe fundamental change has already begun. It has been suggested that all of us here are part of a revolution, changing higher education through international internships. But why is it revolutionary? First, because it challenges the norms of both society and traditional education. Increasingly, any student can take an internship abroad as part of their degree program, an experience once reserved only for the elite. 20 years ago, how many first-generation students could dream of starting their career at a fashion company in Milan or a marketing company in Dublin? But perhaps the most important reason is that fundamentally, international internships are both experiential and individual. They are the anti-mass education, a journey of self-discovery, of individual professional advancement. It is also increasingly academic. The idea of academic education existing outside the classroom is the first sign of what I believe will be the next incarnation of the university degree. In the 2014 Gallup Purdue Index of 30,000 degree holders, the value was reinforced, finding more than any other factor, including Ivy League education, that having an internship more than doubled reported levels of happiness and career engagement. Students spend their whole childhood in a classroom. Do we really need another 4 years? We need to see education as possible, more impactful, and perhaps preferable outside the classroom and in the real world. So what is this bold idea? Well, while the 20th century was the year of the universal 4-year degree, I propose the 21st century be the emergence of the experiential degree, a 4-year undergraduate degree delivered entirely outside of the classroom. Why can't philosophy be taught while volunteering in Cambodia? Or English skill be refined while working at a newspaper in London? The connection between theory and practice needs to be more relevant and more impactful. We are not preparing people for a career in a factory, so why is our education system so involved around general education? As a society, we must provide the environment for everyone to find a career that they love. But this is just tweaking around the edges of the system. We need to change the status quo fundamentally. We need to build a local and global curriculum that focuses on personal self-awareness, workforce preparedness, real-world projects, language acquisition, mentoring, and intercultural understanding, while still maintaining academic rigor. Leveraging the technology of online courses to allow remote academic supervision, while students experience hand-on learning. But where do we start? I propose the next president convene a task force, an educational congress with all stakeholders, that we together design an Ivy League education that can be delivered entirely outside of the classroom, that by 2020 we have a degree that measures knowledge, skill and competency in a broad range of areas and prepares students to address the national and international challenges ahead of us. Together, we must seek a bigger and bolder vision for what is next, and international internships are just the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Merson. Our final speaker today is Senator R. Kelly Cameron of the great state of Massachusetts. Senator Cameron is well known as a bridge builder in the Senate, and he truly reaches across the aisle, from Kelly to Cameron, from Ireland to Scotland, from the Hibernians to the Caledonians. Senator Cameron is truly a one-man grand coalition. Senator Cameron.
Thank you, sir. I'll try and use a little bit of technology here, moving into a new age. To the distinguished panelists and presiding elder, I say that lovingly. To all of my family members, an exceptional idea begins with human imagination. Recall over the course of your life, or at least the part of your life when things begin to matter most to you, I'm sure you will remember countless moments in history where you will say, I can't believe it. Take, for instance, a man on the moon, an idea birthed in 1961 from the imagination of former President John F. Kennedy, following the 1957 Sputnik mission by the Soviet Union. What started in 1961 was an idea, but was not actualized until Apollo 11 mission in 1969. It took a full 8 years later before Neil Armstrong placed his astronaut boots on the surface of the moon. How about the creation of the internet? With all of its unfiltered craziness, at least we don't have Britannica Encyclopedia anymore. Thank goodness. How about the creation of the electric car? Even more, whoever thought one of the most expensive luxury cars on the market would be an electric one? I still can't believe it myself. Or for an entire culture of people, the election of the first African-American president of the United States. The unbelievable is possible. If we give impossible considerable thought, the impossible actually becomes quite possible, which brings us to this moment right here, right now, to think about how we can revolutionize global education, to ascend to new heights in our thoughts, chart new courses in our doing, put forth ideas that challenge the imagination of students and professionals alike, to think big. How big can we think as a society of thinkers, educated thinkers at that, and doers and professionals? Our task is to encourage bright young minds to go beyond their wildest dreams, not with hopes of winning the lottery. The odds are too great. The odds are too great. As leaders in higher education, we vie for #1 status, to be first across the educational platform. But this moment is not about being the first to claim the rights to a revolutionary idea, but to think collectively about how to accomplish the impossible. There's been many important strides and advances in global education. Take, for instance, study abroad, which is no longer the hot thing for a student to do. We're seeing steady growth in internship experiences domestically and internationally. We're continuing efforts to promote faculty exchanges among international institutions. More progression is taking place in the development of partnerships with leading corporations across the globe. Each of these areas and many, many more have already been accomplished. So what's next for global education? Whatever the thought or idea, I assure you it cannot and will not be accomplished by one institution. To some, colleges and universities working together, actually working together, is impossible. But quite frankly, it's necessary if we're going to imagine and bring to life the next really, really big thing. So again, where can global education go? What remains? What is the next big thing? Space. Yes, the final frontier. To boldly go where no man or woman has gone before. That's for my fellow Trekkies in the room. Space travels, scientific studies in outer space, walking in space, are far more than a new frontier. We've done that already. But a mission to Mars is a new frontier. If we dare to go, if we dare to dream big. While I jokingly mentioned Star Trek, the concept of space travel was, as previously mentioned, introduced by President Kennedy in 1961 and actualized in 1969. Slightly in between, in 1965, Hollywood introduced Lost in Space. Well, maybe that's not a good example, but in 1966, we were introduced to the voyage of the Starship Enterprise, the famed TV show of Star Trek, a themed show of space travel in 1966, followed by many other television programs and motion picture productions like Gravity, and most recently, The Martian. For the collective gathered here today, I seek your vote to support students joining Mission Space Travel, the ultimate experience. If you cannot see it, you're just not thinking big enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cameron. Thank you. And thanks to all four of our senators, speakers today. We do have time for a few questions. As I said, please make them brief, direct, and indicate to whom they are addressed. Questions from the floor of the Senate. They can also come from the galleries.
Hello, my name is Drew from Arizona State University. My question is for our second senator. What would you say?
Roberts? Yes. Senator Roberts?
Senator Roberts, yes, sorry about that. What would you say to those who would say that having a 3-year visa would allow individuals to stay in countries longer than they should?
Meaning longer than the 3 years? Oh, okay. I mean, I think that's the challenge we deal with right now. I think we would just, I mean, people stay longer than their visas currently, don't they?
Right.
There you go.
This is unusual. This is unusual protocol. But Senator Cameron has asked to respond, and we will grant him 30 seconds of time. Do you cede your time to Senator Cameron?
I will not allow the rules to be broken.
We make them up as we go, Senator. Right.
Bethany from Alliance Abroad Group. This is for the first senator. Sorry, name.
Senator Larkin.
Senator Larkin. If the idea is to revolutionize global education, I was just wondering how you think that the funds and grants from the government would benefit international students coming to the United States for internships.
That's That's a great question, and thank you for asking it. I think as it stands right now, the bill is proposed for US students, but with more funding from Congress and my fellow senators, we could certainly approve more funds for work-study grants for international students studying in the US.
Any further questions? Right.
Thanks. Daniel Niven here, MP for England's #1 city, Manchester.
Sorry. Correction, isn't that Leicester?
My question is also for my friend Senator Brooks. As you know, in the next few months, Britain will have left the European Union, and President Trump will be the head of the leader of the US. So my question for you, Senator, I don't vote for him, you do.
Order!
It seems that we're seeing a new form of insular politics. So I'd be interested to know how you will convince President Trump and Prime Minister Boris Johnson that the interns that will be coming over for several parts of their 3-year experience will be really contributing both to their host company and to the economy, and that Britain and America won't be just overrun with people from very dangerous countries like Mexico and France.
Right. Well, first of all, I just have a little more faith in the American people, and I believe that President Clinton will see this as a long-term strategy for national security, but also a long-term strategy for global engagement and for better educational experiences. And when I say 3-year visa, I should clarify, it's not necessarily that they go for 3 years, but that over a 3-year period, typically while in college, they could have multiple, maybe shorter term experiences. So that would just allow them to sort of move freely. If you want examples of how even existing systems like Erasmus have tried to expand like the Erasmus Mundus process. There's lots of great editorial content on the internet with very dissatisfied students from China, for instance, having to go back and forth from Europe to China to get the visa process going for each individual country. So even some of these things aren't working. We need a global system where we're all involved, and I think President Clinton will be on board.
Thank you, Senator. Any further questions?
Hello, Neil McKinney from DePaul University. I have a question for the third senator.
Senator Merson.
Senator Merson, your idea for vocational education is very interesting, but particularly coming from an institution that's very liberal arts driven, I anticipate some pushback from faculty who are very much about learning for learning's sake. So thinking about that as a different sort of model, how do you anticipate being able to get faculty on board with the idea of vocational education?
Thanks for the question. My idea is actually perfectly suited for liberal arts education. I think that the idea that liberal arts is taught in a classroom is insane, and we need to think bigger than that. So my idea is simply to point out that the increased number of vocational trainings going into a degree has meant that the only option is to get a 4-year degree, and all 4-year degrees are madly expensive. So when it comes to liberal arts and getting faculty engaged, I think it's asking them to think bigger as well and saying, wouldn't you rather be outside the classroom too? We have technology to teach online. We can teach all these academic classes online. History, ancient history, English, biology, they can all be taught online now. But the professor themselves could also be simultaneously supervising practical engaged opportunities on site, locally or overseas. So I think that any discipline can be adapted to this model. It's not something that's easy, but it's something that's possible. We've already proven that we can teach online, so why not also teach overseas online and have that sort of in-person practical experience?
Thank you, Senator Merson. We have time for 1 or 2 more questions. Are there any questions from the galleries? Yes.
Very popular, Senator Roberts again. My question, it's more like a proposal. Usually visas respond to a fear that it's inside the core of the country. We have very good examples like European Union, where student mobility is now possible within all the countries. Is there any possibility for your proposals to think differently and become like a United America, altogether America, I mean Canada, States, Mexico, Central America, South America, and make it more not a visa process, but a United America mobility?
Absolutely, let's do it.
We thank you for your consideration of time. Now, one more question was, there are two more back here.
Rebecca Claris, Foundation for International Education. My question is for Senator Cameron. When the students are going to Mars, would you anticipate that they would come back to Earth to share their learnings back here on this great planet?
No. Of course, of course, of course, of course. A big idea is not something that we just try and abandon. We think about it. We think about the safety of those who would engage. We think about the safety of the transport, the training that's associated with it. We think about a lot of things, even as we work with students to address whatever their educational needs are at our respective institutions. When a student exposes to us that they're interested in going to a third world country to practice medicine or to develop fresh water systems, we encourage that. And we encourage that thinking about the safety and the safe return of the student.
Thank you, Senator Cameron. One more question at the back there.
Samantha LaCroix from USA Academic Internships, and this question is for the senator from Maryland. I must agree, I find your proposal very interesting, and you speak to the educational community really getting behind this revolutionary idea, but I question if industries are prepared to embrace this model and how you might negotiate resistance to the influx of students learning under this kind of structure.
Well, it's a bold idea, so it probably means that not every aspect has been worked out. But I think that a presidential leadership of the right type, which we may expect or not later this year, could bring together all the stakeholders, which I would hope would be designed to result in a better outcome for all parties. Industry talks a lot about how education and higher education is not meeting their needs in terms of skills, and hopefully we can talk about also the cost of education. There's so much money at the moment going into four-year degrees and into universities throughout the country. You can repurpose some of that if you're not using it in the same way that you have in the past. So I think there's opportunity to be innovative there.
Thank you, Senator Merson. Another question back there. Yeah, well, where's our microphone on this side?
Over here.
Well, all right. All right.
Roy Borden from the University College of the Cayman Islands, and this is the second senator who talked about the GIV visa. Have any thought been given to creating a virtual university where your idea of a visa could be perhaps more palatable to the bigots, where you could study for a certain time in your jurisdiction, therefore shortening the time when you would have to study use the visa access?
I'm an equal opportunity idea considerer. So yeah, let's do that. That sounds like a really interesting proposal, absolutely. I will say this about online learning, no disrespect to my colleague from Maryland, and just to paraphrase a great movie filmed right here in Boston, Good Will Hunting. You can study all the stuff that you want. You can read the books and study the theories and these things, but until you stand under the Sistine Chapel, you'll never really get why it was incredible. And so while I'm okay with some online learning, I think getting students out into the physical world, domestically and internationally, is the key.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Yet another question? All right.
Yes, Bob Goff from Western University. I have a question for Senator from Maryland. What would your proposal be to do with all of the empty universities that we'd have and the disenfranchised alumni in the world who could be from anywhere?
Well, I don't think this is going to happen tomorrow, so I think there'll be some time to figure out what to do with them. But no, I think that what I'm talking about is thinking boldly about a new way of imagining education. So maybe we do develop an experiential degree, and then maybe half of the universities take it up, and maybe half of the students get to have half of their degree in this way. But I think if we don't push the envelope way beyond what we see as possible, then we're ending up compromising and only giving 3 credits for a business internship. So I think we need to think very big and then see where we land in the end.
Thank you, Senator Merson. I think we are now ready to move to 1-minute summation from each of the senators. We'll go in the same order that their presentations went. So, Senator Larkin, please.
Economic inequality is a growing problem in our nation and worldwide. College is expensive and financial aid is confusing and convoluted. While it may not be the most revolutionary idea, it is the most practical. We should use our existing structures to offer immediate change and assistance to students in need while also developing their career skills. This is good for our students, this is good for our economy, and it is our moral imperative as educators.
Thank you, Senator Larkin. Senator Roberts.
I don't care how much money you have. When you approach the immigration officer without the appropriate visa, you will be turned away. It's done, period. It's over. We need a practical solution that applies here on Earth where actual humans live, that would actually impact the current educational experience of students today, not in 2020 with this new revolutionary university system. Today, we need a system that a student can get a visa and have a practical internship experience somewhere in the world.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Senator Merton.
Thanks. I love the idea of a global internship visa. I think it's awesome. It'll make my life so much better. Unfortunately,
Sorry, you're not a voting member, Senator Merton.
But unfortunately, this is the United States Senate, so we can only control policy in the United States. So we can't get other countries to agree to ideas which there's no way they're ever going to agree to. But there's nothing more exciting as being part of a revolution, being in the rebel camp, the outsider, the anti-establishment looking in, and sharing a new vision about what is possible. Like explorers setting off to see if the world is flat and finding out that it is round, you are all part of this change. This room is full of people seeking new frontiers in education, finding global and professional opportunities for their students. Rather than being surprised by the next greatest company that will turn higher education on its head, I call upon all of you in this chamber that know there is a better way. We must seek a bolder and bigger vision for what is next. I ask all of you to join with me and vote on my bold idea.
Thank you, Senator Merton. Senator Cameron.
I like to work out so when cheap shots are given, I can take it. Institutions are driven by students, individuals with very big imaginations, of which we must keep pace. Institutions, it's time to partner, it's time to develop, and more importantly, it's time to build relationships across the aisles, to work collectively as big thinkers. to bridge the divide and eliminate the red tape of visas. It's time for new ideas, not simply to put on a new tire on your car. All that has been shared is just a new tire. It's time for something different, something big. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cameron. Now let me explain about the voting. Not just the senators on the Senate floor can vote. The senators in the galleries can also vote. As I said, it will be by applause. We had a bit of a mishap last year in Dublin, and we don't want to repeat that. So it will be by applause, and as I will call on each senator, and I will ask that senator to stand just to make sure that we're properly identifying her or him. And the applause will be measured by two special apps that were designed for that, and they will be handled by the two bailiffs to my front. All right, if there are no questions, then would Senator Larkin please stand, and may we hear the vote for Senator Larkin? Perhaps some of you in the galleries were not here for my introduction, but it's all right. You can whoop. I didn't mention whooping as being outlawed. All right, for Senator Roberts, please. Thank you. This is turning into a bit more of the British and Irish Parliament than the US Senate, but that's all right. Now, please, for Senator Merton. All right, enough said. Thank you. For Senator Cameron, please.
We have a donor. Thank you.
May I call on the bailiffs for the results? It's these apps designed by teenagers that you get for free, download for free. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, bailiffs. Thank you, Senators Larkin, Roberts, Merton, and Cameron, and thank all of the rest of you senators who participated today. I've been asked to make, before we adjourn, I've been asked to make a few announcements about what follows later in the day. We'll now walk just next door to the John F. Kennedy Library, where we will have our evening reception and refreshments. The reception is down on the bottom floor with a beautiful view. So down some stairs from where you came in. Now you can go straight down to the shrimp and the Chardonnay, and that's fine with us. But you may want to visit the exhibit in the Kennedy Library, which is really an historical vision of John F. Kennedy's life and work. It's very, very impressive, and I recommend it to you. You might also be interested in a revolving exhibit that is there now, and that is Ernest Hemingway's life between the two world wars. And you might know that the Kennedy Library has a great collection of Hemingway's drafts and writings and letters, all given to Jackie Kennedy by Hemingway's widow, Mary Walsh Hemingway. So, to tell you then about the timing, the exhibits, the two I mentioned, close at 8 o'clock, but our reception will go on until 9:30, so you needn't think you need to rush through. The shrimp won't run out, I don't think. The buses back to the hotel will leave every half hour from 7 p.m., from 7 o'clock. Matt, is there anything else that I should announce? Thank you for that, for being brief. Tony, anything I should announce? All right. Well, thanks to all of you, and see you at the reception, and have a great time this evening.